When the Lakers traded for Russell Westbrook in the 2021 offseason, I said to myself, this is not going to work out. At the midpoint of the season, my predictions are turning out to be correct. Here's the breakdown of the good, bad, and the ugly with Russell Westbrook, why I think he's overrated, and why trading for him is one of the worst decisions that the Lakers have made in this century. The good. We'll start the video by giving some praise to Russell Westbrook. Russ is one of the greatest rebounders at his position, if not the greatest of all time. He's averaging 7.4 rebounds per game for his career, which is the second best mark ever for a point guard, only slightly behind Oscar Robertson, who averaged 7.5 boards in his career. However, Oscar played during the 60s at a frenetic pace, when the teams averaged about 20 shots per game more than today. He also averaged 42 minutes per game, compared to Westbrook's 34, which means his numbers are slightly inflated. Russ averaged a triple-double in 4 NBA seasons, which was unprecedented, and it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't pulling 10 or more rebounds a night. Sure, you might say that a lot of times his centers gave up on a rebound just so Russ could get it and lead the fast break, but still, the man has done what hasn't been done before, mainly due to his insane athleticism and effort to out-rebound the opponents. Of course, Russell is still faster than most players, and he's still dangerous in transition, even though a slight dip in athleticism is noticeable now that he's 33 years old and in his 14th NBA season. And finally, Westbrook is a willing passer, which was one of the main reasons why the Lakers traded for him. Last season, when LeBron was resting, the Lakers struggled mightily to create opportunities in the half-court, and Westbrook was supposed to be a worthy alternative as a primary ball handler when LeBron is on the bench. Unfortunately, this year they are struggling on offense even more, and it's largely because of Russ. But more on that later. The bad. Defense. Russell Westbrook could have been one of the greatest defenders ever at his position, with 99th percentile athleticism, 6'4" height, 200 pounds, quick feet, and lateral movement that every slow white guy dreams of. And he showed glimpses of great defense at times. During the 2012 Olympics, flanked by LeBron, Kobe, and other All-Stars, Russ didn't have to worry about offense at all. Instead, he was hounding opposing point guards. He was always in a defensive stance, and he was a menace in the passing lanes, always lurking to get a steal for a fast break. In the 2012 playoffs against OKC, Mavs shooting guard Jason Terry was scorching hot, hitting almost every shot coming into the fourth quarter of Game 1. And then, Russ switched onto him and became his shadow. Terry couldn't even get open to receive a pass, let alone hoist a jump shot, and he went scoreless in the fourth quarter. But the problem with Russell is that kind of defensive outputs were isolated incidents, not an everyday occurrence. Too often, Westbrook is just a bystander, contributing to the defense the same as the crowd. Just like the people who bought tickets to the game, he watches the opposing offense unraveling, just looking at the ball, while his man has all the time in the world to shoot or cut to the basket. Sometimes, Russ lets an opposing player go by him, not even attempting to stop the dribble penetration, or he gets thrown out of balance by a simple crossover because he's not in a defensive stance. These kinds of lapses can happen to everybody, but they happen too many times with Russ. Another thing is fighting through screens. While his strong athletic body and quick feet can navigate even through the hardest screens, Westbrook often gets smoked on these types of plays. His MO is similar to LeBron's during the last regular season with the Cavs and the first year with the Lakers, when he was usually resting on defense. When the screen comes, Westbrook tends to instruct another teammate to run over, while he stays with the screener, not wanting to fight through the screen and chase his man. Of course, this kind of action often causes the defense to over-rotate and eventually crack, giving the opposing team an open shot. We could also mention the gambling to get steals. Even though Westbrook doesn't hunt steals as often as he once did, Vogel's best chance for a good defense is putting Russ in the corner to guard the corner three, and this tactic is often employed by coaches when they're dealing with a bad defender. And that's why I always hated when the general public and so-called analysts praised Russell's effort, saying that he's giving 100% each game. I hated it because it's simply not true. Russ plays fast and dunks the ball hard. That doesn't mean he's playing hard all the time, or that he puts maximum effort. Kevin Garnett was giving maximum effort every game. That's why he was selected to the all-defensive team 15 times. Kobe was the same, and in the first half of his career, he always guarded the best opposing player. Giannis, Scottie Pippen, Jordan, and a lot of other greats did it too, because basketball is not football, and you have to play on both sides of the court. If anyone still thinks that Westbrook is playing each game at 100%, go watch Alex Caruso or TJ McConnell play, and how they're fighting through screens, running and rotating on each play, and diving to the floor. Russ can do all those things, but he rarely does. He's not focused on defense. He makes bad reads, and frankly, his defense is a waste of athleticism, if you ask me. The bad. Offense. By the time of making this video, Russell is among the 5 worst jump shooters in the league, scoring only 0.8 points on his jump shots. Granted, he's been taking fewer shots with the Lakers, and there are not as many pull-up jumpers as in OKC, but they're still there, and that's bad. The Lakers left Russ wide open during their 2020 playoff series with the Rockets. I don't know how they expected him to become this great shooter all of a sudden. What Russell is great at, and what he should be doing more, is cutting to the basket, posting smaller players in the paint, penetrating to the paint to create open shots, and occasionally shooting spot-up threes, which are the only jump shots which he is shooting at a decent clip. The problem is that he's not great at moving without the ball, and he never was. As soon as the ball leaves his hands, Russell can become a spectator, just like he does on defense. Okay, maybe we're a little too harsh here, but go watch how Steph Curry works without the ball and how much movement he creates. Whether it's drawing defenders, setting screens, or running through screens to get open. Sure, Steph's shooting has a gravitational pull like the sun, while Russ gets ignored when he's standing alone on the three-point line. But still, I want to see more cutting from Westbrook. I want to see more screen setting, and I don't want to see pull-up jumpers and 1-on-5 basketball. Westbrook's decision-making has never been his strong side, and he's known to take ill-advised shots with 20 seconds on the shot clock. He also makes a ton of careless turnovers, simply because he's playing too fast. Just like Shaq told him the other night, Russ didn't average less than 4 turnovers per game since 2014, and he's near the bottom of the league in turnover percentage in 2022 as well. Yes, he's averaging nearly 8 assists per game, but his assist-to-turnover ratio is among the worst out of all starting point guards in 2022. The ugly. Imagine if you were an NBA general manager, and some other GM called you and offered you a former All-Star, but then he also tells you that the All-Star is one of the least efficient players in the entire league, one of the most turnover-prone players, and that his defense is subpar on most nights, mainly due to the lack of focus and a lackadaisical approach. You would have probably laughed in that GM's face, but if you were a bit more polite, you might ask him, okay, but if he's not a good defender and is inefficient on offense, he's probably earning the veteran minimum, right? And here's the clincher, ladies and gentlemen, because Russell Westbrook will earn $44 million this season, which is the 4th highest salary in the NBA this season. But that's not all. He also has a player option for next year, worth $47 million, making his contract the worst in the NBA. Rob Pelinka didn't want to re-sign Alex Caruso, who is thriving with the Bulls, and whose defense alone is more valuable than Westbrook's entire output. And that's mind-boggling to me. The Lakers could have also signed DeMar DeRozan, an elite mid-range shooter, and a player who was top 10 in the NBA in the assist-turnover ratio last year. But no, they pissed away half of the roster for somebody who gets triple-doubles. Don't get me wrong, triple-doubles are a respectable feat, but the Washington Wizards were a bad team in 2021, despite Bradley Beal leading the NBA in scoring and Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double for the season. Russ shot 33% from the field and 25% for 3 in the playoffs for the Wizards last year, and they lost in the first round in 5 games, despite his triple-double average in that series, which gives you an idea about the real value of his triple-doubles. Westbrook has shot below 40% in 6 out of his last 8 playoff series, and his team's lost 6 of those 8 series. So if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Russell Westbrook's record is speaking for itself. He's not playing winning basketball. He has major flaws on both ends of the court, which are killing the Lakers' spacing offensively, and their elite defense has turned mediocre. Understanding your role on the team is a crucial skill, and Westbrook never fully understood it, which is why his teams mostly failed to meet expectations. It would be foolish to blame him for all the devastating problems of the Lakers and their poorly constructed roster, but he is definitely the first one to blame. Russ now has the worst and the most untradeable contract in the NBA, and the Lakers have likely squandered 1 or maybe even 2 years of LeBron's and AD's prime with this trade, along with giving $64 million to Timofey Mozgov and Magic Johnson gifting Ivica Zubac to the Clippers in 2019. This is the worst front office decision in recent Lakers history, and arguably the worst in the last 10 or 15 years.